My name is Daniel Hartman. I'm 42 years old, and what I experienced between life and death changed everything I believed about guilt, love, and forgiveness. Have you ever feel on your skin the pain that you once caused someone? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. The light made me feel the pain I caused others. I always thought that time would erase the past, that all I had to do was move on and try to be a better person. But the truth is, guilt doesn't go away when it's ignored. It just hides inside us, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. For years, I carried an invisible weight, smiles on the outside, torment on the inside, and deep down, I knew there were things I could never forgive myself for. It all started one night when my body couldn't take it anymore. I felt short of breath, and absolute silence took over everything. I thought, this is the end, but it wasn't. It was the beginning of something impossible to explain. An immense light enveloped me, and I no longer felt fear or pain, only peace, and at the same time a love so strong that it seemed to pierce me completely. But then, she showed me, scene by scene, moment by moment. I didn't just see what I did, I felt what others felt because of me. And that's when I understood it wasn't punishment. It was love teaching me what is true. If this story touched something inside you, it might not be by chance. The light made me understand that acknowledging pain is the first step to letting it. So, if this message made sense to you, write here in the comments, I need forgiveness. It's not just a comment. It's a way of saying to yourself, I'm ready to break free. And if you believe that more people need to feel this, leave your like and subscribe to continue walking with us. Because every video here is a reminder that no one is alone when they decide to heal. I used to think time would erase everything, that all I had to do was move on, smile in the right photos, work hard enough, distract my mind, and somehow the past would become just a distant blur. But I was wrong. Guilt doesn't disappear when we pretend it doesn't exist. It lurks silently, waiting for the moment when our heart slows down enough to be heard. For years I carried this weight. An invisible weight, but real enough to tire me every day, even when my body felt rested. It was as if I always owed life something, as if a part of me had remained trapped somewhere in the past. I tried to convince myself that it was all over, that no one else remembered. But deep down, I knew I still hadn't forgiven myself. There were nights when the silence was heavier than any noise. I'd lie in bed and feel that dull ache in my chest. It wasn't physical, it was something deeper. The kind of pain that comes when you know you've disappointed someone who trusted you, that you've hurt someone who only wanted the best for you. And even though time had passed, that memory would return like a distant echo, reminding me that some wounds heal not with forgetting but with truth. Guilt has a sound. It speaks to us in short, repetitive thoughts that arise out of nowhere. Why did I do that? What if I had acted differently? Is there still time to fix it? These questions became my silent companion. I learned to smile as they screamed inside me. I learned to appear calm as I struggled not to be swallowed up by myself. And it was in this state, of apparent normality, but with a weary soul, that the inevitable happened. It was an ordinary afternoon. I remember the light streaming through the window, the smell of coffee, the sound of the television tuned to some news program. But inside me, everything was about to change. I felt my body fail, as if I'd suddenly forgotten how to breathe. The air seemed to be stagnant. My vision darkened at the edges, and time stopped. For a moment, there was nothing. No sound, no color, no thought, just emptiness. But it was a different kind of emptiness, not frightening. A kind of absolute silence, as if the whole world had held its breath with me. I remember the feeling of weightlessness. My body was no longer heavy. I felt no pain, and yet I knew something was happening. I was conscious, but not as I had been before. Everything seemed distant, yet incredibly clear. Suddenly I realized I was no longer lying where I thought I was. I could see everything from above, the room, the faces around me, the muffled sound of voices. It was like watching a movie about myself. I felt scared, but at the same time curious. I tried to understand. Was I dreaming, dead, or living somewhere between these two worlds that never touch? It was then that the sound began to fade away. First the voices, then the noise of the equipment. And finally, even the sound of my own breathing faded. Silence took over, but it was a silence filled with presence, almost as if the silence itself were watching me. I could see nothing else, only darkness, but it was a living darkness, as if pulsing, a blackness that seemed to breathe, that seemed to wait for something. I remember thinking, that's it, it's over. But soon after, an inexplicable calm enveloped me. The absence of sound gave way to a faint vibration, a frequency not heard with the ears but felt with the body. And within this darkness far away, a point of light appeared. Small at first, almost imperceptible, but something inside me knew this was where I was supposed to go. It was no ordinary light. It had a color I'd never seen before, a glow that was both gold and white, warm and soft. And as I approached, any remaining fear began to fade. That light seemed to call to me, as if it recognized something within me, and I, without understanding, began to let myself be carried away. As I floated, a sense of peace began to grow within me. It was as if all the broken parts of my being began to come together again. I felt a love so deep that human words could never describe it. It wasn't just being at peace, it was peace. I thought about all the times I'd tried to be better but failed, all the times I'd hidden my pain from others, believing that if I didn't talk about it, it would go away. And in that silent approach, I realized that the light knew everything. She didn't need me to say anything. She saw me completely, from my first mistake to my last regret. The point of light grew, became a presence, and for the first time I felt I wasn't being watched. I was being understood. It was as if existence itself was saying to me, I know who you are, and yet I love you. As the darkness receded, brightness filled everything around me. There was no more time, no more space, no more body. Only this living, pulsating energy that seemed to breathe with me. It was as if I had returned home to the place I should never have left. And it was in that moment, on that threshold between fear and surrender, that I understood that nothing was being taken from me. On the contrary, I was about to receive something I had been waiting for a long time. The truth. I kept approaching that light, and with each passing moment something inside me shifted. It was as if the very essence of fear was melting away. What had once seemed like an immense, distant force now seemed to breathe with me. The light was not just brightness, it was presence. A living, conscious, loving presence. She saw me. She felt me. It was as if I were standing before something that had always been with me, but that I had never been able to see while I was trapped in ordinary life. There was no voice, but I understood everything she said. The words came as pure thought, direct, clean, without sound. It was a noiseless dialogue, made of sensation and understanding. And what I felt first was a love impossible to describe. It wasn't a human love, the kind that depends on gestures, promises, or reciprocity. It was something that filled me completely, asking for nothing in return. And the more I accepted it, the more I realized that this light didn't come from outside. It was within me, always had been. I was the one living with my eyes closed. I wanted to stay there forever. Nothing I had experienced before compared to that peace. But then something happened that changed everything. The light intensified, and suddenly, images began to appear around me. They didn't come as distant memories, but as living experiences. I was inside them, reliving every scene, feeling every emotion. It was as if the light was showing me what I needed to see. At first, I thought it was some kind of test. I thought, she's going to judge me. But soon I realized there was no judgment. There was compassion. The light didn't show itself to me to condemn, but to reveal. And it was then that I began to see and to feel. I saw the face of a person I once hurt with thoughtless words. I remembered the situation, but this time I wasn't me. I was her. I felt what she felt. The pain, the disappointment, the hurt. It was as if my soul had switched places so I could understand what really happened. And as much as it hurt, there was a love behind it all. Light seemed to envelop me, saying without words, it's not punishment, it's understanding. The scenes followed one another like waves. People, moments, decisions. Things I thought were small but which had left their mark on other hearts. I could feel every tear I provoked, every heavy silence, every time I disappointed someone and moved on pretending it was nothing. The light made me feel the pain I caused others. And in that feeling, I understood that the true weight of guilt does not come from the mistake itself, but from the lack of awareness we have about how much we affect those around us. For a few moments, I wanted to run away. The intensity was almost unbearable. I tried to pull away, but the light wouldn't let me. And not out of compulsion, but out of tenderness. It was like a mother holding her child's face and saying, "Look, it's important to see." And then I understood. I wasn't being punished. I was being loved enough to understand what I didn't yet understand. At that moment, a gentle force enveloped me completely, and without needing words, the light showed me something even more profound. Every act of love I had ever performed, even the small ones, the ones I had forgotten, had created chains of goodness that continued to spread. Just as my mistakes had caused pain, my sincere gestures of kindness had left traces of healing. It was as if the light were showing me both sides of the scale, not to weigh, but to teach. It wanted me to understand that the universe doesn't punish. It reflects. That everything we give returns, not as revenge, but as learning. And in that moment, I felt immense gratitude, because I finally understood that guilt only exists until the moment when conscience awakens. When we understand, it stops being a prison and becomes a teacher. I began to cry, tears that weren't of suffering, but of recognition. Each drop seemed to dissolve a part of the pain I'd carried for years. I felt myself being cleansed, healed from within, and the light remained there, steady, silent, loving. It showed me what was most human in me, my mistakes, my flaws, my fears, and at the same time what was most divine, the ability to love despite everything. At one point, the light seemed to draw even closer. I couldn't see a face, but I knew it was smiling. A smile felt, not seen, and somehow, I heard it inside me. Nothing you experienced was in vain. Every pain was a mirror of the love you couldn't yet see. Those words pierced what was left of me. I felt a warmth spread through my chest, and I realized that old weight, that silent guilt, was beginning to dissolve, like golden dust blown away by the wind. It was as if someone opened a window into the soul and let light in for the first time. I thought about the people I've hurt, the times I failed to say, "I'm sorry," the words left unsaid, and I realized that true forgiveness doesn't begin when the other person accepts it, but when we have the courage to look at what we did and still allow ourselves to love. Love, there, wasn't a reward. It was a source. It was what had always been behind everything, even my mistakes. And it was in that moment that I realized that guilt, in fact, is love asking to be recognized. Time, if it existed there, vanished. I didn't know how long it lasted. Seconds, hours, eternity. All I knew was that I was no longer the same. Something inside me had changed. Forever. And for the first time, I didn't want to run away from the pain. I wanted to understand it. Because I understood that every pain we feel is an invitation to love deeper. The light then began to dim, not as if it were going away, but as if to say, "Now it's up to you." I felt a final rush of warmth, a vibration that ran through my entire body, and then suddenly everything began to fade away again. The sound returned, the air returned, gravity returned, and in a second, I realized I was breathing again, but I knew I hadn't just come back to life. I had come back transformed. When I opened my eyes, the light was still there, but something had changed. It no longer came from outside. She breathed inside me. It was as if part of that presence had remained, as if I were now made of the same glow that had once enveloped me. I felt my heart beat differently. The air seemed lighter, and for a brief moment, I didn't know if I was truly back. Everything around me seemed the same. But nothing was the same. I looked at the walls, the ceiling, my hands, and everything seemed new, as if I had been born again, but with the memory of someone who had already lived in eternity. I remember touching my own chest and feeling a gentle warmth, as if the old guilt had been transformed into something alive, into learning. It was no longer weight, it was presence. As I tried to understand what was happening, I heard the same silent voice inside me as before. It wasn't sound, it was pure thought. It said, "Nothing you experienced was to condemn you. It was to awaken you." That phrase echoed within me as if it had been engraved directly into my soul. I finally understood what the light wanted to show me, that guilt is not the enemy of the soul, it is its teacher. That regret, when it is true, is just love trying to remember who it is. It was as if everything suddenly made sense. The times I felt lost, the days I thought God had gone silent, the nights I cried without knowing why. It was all part of the same calling, return home from inside. I realized that every mistake I made was an unconscious attempt to learn to love, and that every pain I experienced was a compassionate response from the universe trying to teach me what I didn't yet understand. The tears came effortlessly. They were different from before. They didn't hurt. They washed. And as I cried, I felt my body vibrate in a new way. It was as if everything inside me was being rearranged, realigned with something greater. I began to understand that forgiveness isn't an act, it's a process, that it begins the moment we decide to look within ourselves with sincerity, without excuses, without masks, without fear. And for the first time, I didn't feel ashamed of what I'd experienced. I felt gratitude. The light made me see that nothing we are is a mistake, that even the choices we consider worst carry within them the seed of learning. I realized that life is a school for the soul, and that every relationship, every loss, every reunion is a lesson in disguise. And guilt? It's not punishment, it's a reminder that we're still sensitive enough to want to be better. As this understanding took shape within me, the light began to change. It didn't disappear, but gently retracted as if to say, "You understand. Now take it with you." It was then that I felt the first sign of my physical body, a slight weight on my chest, the muffled sound of voices, the cold touch of a hand holding mine. The material world was calling me again, and for a moment I wanted to resist. I didn't want to leave, but a new message came, firm and calm. Come back. What you have learned needs to be lived. The sensation was like falling, but not fear. It was as if I were passing through a layer between two worlds. The golden glow turned to gray, the heat turned to cold air, and the absolute silence gave way to the sound of my heart beating again. The first breath I took seemed to overwhelm my body. It was a rebirth, and with it a profound certainty. I was no longer the same. When I realized I was back, people around me were crying. Someone was holding my hand, someone was calling my name. I heard everything, but I still couldn't respond. My body felt too small for everything I felt. I wanted to say it was okay, but there were no words. There was just an immense calm, a kind of silent love that was now a part of me. In the following days, a lot changed. Not because the world was different, but because my eyes finally saw what had always been there. People, I saw them in a different light. Every face told a story. Every gesture had a reason. I felt an empathy I'd never known before. It was as if the experience had expanded my heart to accommodate the entire world. I began to realize that no one is truly separate from us, that somehow we are all connected by invisible threads of love and learning. When someone suffers because of our actions, that pain returns not as punishment, but as a reminder of our eternal connection. This awareness changed everything. I couldn't live the same way anymore. Words that I once said without thinking now carried weight. Silences that once seemed neutral now had meaning. It was as if each act was a choice between spread light or shadow. I began to see guilt differently. It still surfaced sometimes, but now I recognized it and said, "You are not my enemy. You are here to teach me." And when it manifested, I remembered the light, that loving presence that showed me that even pain has a purpose. Today I understand that no one returns the same after touching the truth. No matter how much the mind tries to explain, there are things that only the soul understands. The experience transformed me, not because it gave me answers, but because it gave me awareness. And awareness is true forgiveness, that which frees the soul from the weight of itself. Sometimes when the world gets too noisy and routine pulls me back to automatic, I close my eyes and remember. I remember the light. I remember what she showed me. And I remember the feeling of being completely seen and yet completely loved. This is what keeps me going, even on the days when I still stumble, because now I know that falling is also part of the path of those who are learning to walk in the light. Since that day, Something in me has changed in ways I can't explain. Life still moves at the same pace as before. Days go by, people pass by, the world keeps turning. But it's as if I see everything from a different perspective. The little things take on a silent meaning. The wind seems to carry messages. The sound of rain sounds like a memory. Even the gaze of a stranger seems to carry a message of existence. And all these subtleties make me understand what the light wanted to show me. Nothing is random, and everything is an invitation. Sometimes I feel her presence near me, not as a vision, but as a sensation. A gentle warmth in my chest, a calm that arrives without warning, silence that welcomes. And it is in that moment that I remember what I learned there. Guilt is just the beginning of conscience. It doesn't come to punish, it comes to guide. It's love's way of teaching us to take better care of what we touch. I learned that there is no true separation between people, that behind appearances we are all connected by invisible threads, some made of pain, others of compassion. And when we hurt someone, it's as if we hurt a part of ourselves. Today I realize that every encounter is a lesson in disguise. What hurts teaches us where we still need to look. What we love shows what has already awakened within us. And even those who disappoint us bring a hidden message about what we still need to forgive. Life now is made of signs. I see the world as a sequence of reflections, a great mirror that returns to me what I have not yet understood. I understood that forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about seeing more clearly. It's about looking at what hurt and recognizing the lessons learned. And every time an old memory tries to come back, I take a deep breath and let it pass. Because I know that if it still hurts, it's because there's still something to learn. Sometimes I close my eyes and return to that moment before I return to my body. I remember the dim light, the sound slowly returning, the cool air touching my face, and the silent message I felt before I opened my eyes. Take this with you. Since then, I have tried to honor that request. Every word I say, every gesture, every silence, everything has become a choice. Choose between spreading light or shadow, and even stumbling, I keep trying to walk on the right side. People around me say I've changed. Some believe, others doubt. I don't try to explain. The experience wasn't meant to be told, it was meant to be lived, transformed into action. Today, when I look someone in the eye, I see more than just appearance. I see the fear hidden behind the anger, the affection, disguised by pride, the sadness hidden by a smile. And I realize that no one is truly evil. They're just tired, trying to remember who they are. Sometimes when the world gets too noisy, I return to the silence within. There, the light still lives. Not as a memory, but as a state. And it is in this state that I understand what it really means to walk in it. It's not about seeing the supernatural. It's about seeing the sacred within the natural. I walk slowly now. I've learned that each step carries an intention, and each intention shapes what comes next. When I make a mistake, I don't condemn myself. I observe. When it hurts, I don't run away. I listen. And when life seems heavy, I close my eyes and remember, the light is still here. And if somehow you feel the same way right now, this desire to be silent inside, to breathe deeper, to listen to what your heart is trying to say, then make a small gesture with me. Nothing religious, nothing rehearsed, just a moment of truth. Close your eyes if you can. Breathe. Feel the air coming in, feel the air come out. Let this simple movement remind you that you are alive. Now, think about the people who have crossed your path, those who taught you through love and those who taught you through pain. Think about the words you wish you had said and the ones you wish you had kept. And without guilt, just with sincerity, say to yourself, silently, I understand, I accept, I forgive myself. Allow this phrase to echo within you. It doesn't need to be said out loud, but it needs to be felt, because forgiveness is a return, and return is a new beginning. Let the air return to its natural rhythm. Feel your body present, your heart calm, and when you open your eyes, realize that nothing has changed, and at the same time, everything is different. The light was never a distant place. It is the space that opens up when we finally allow ourselves to feel. And every time we breathe mindfully, every time we choose to understand. Instead of judge, every time we love despite everything, it is she who breathes in us. Since that day, I have never been able to see the world the same way again. Experience has shown me that life is a constant dialogue between the soul and the light, even when we pretend not to hear. Nothing is coincidence. Every encounter, every separation, every silence carries a subtle message that the heart recognizes before the mind understands. The light taught me that we are not here to be perfect, but to be conscious. And when consciousness awakens, even mistakes become learning tools. I realize that forgiveness isn't an endpoint. It's a journey you take every day, one step at a time. And that true liberation is not in forgetting what happened, but in looking at what was and saying, "Now I understand why I had to live through this." Today, when I look to the sky, I don't look for answers. I give thanks, because I understood that light does not only appear in extraordinary experiences. She lives in the midst of chaos, in unexpected kindness, in silent embraces, in the courage to apologize, in the strength to carry on even without understanding. And it is there, in the simple, that her presence manifests itself most strongly. Every dawn, I remember, we are all going home. Every pain is a door, every love is a reminder, and in the end, the fate is the same for everyone: the light. If you've stuck with me this far, maybe this story touched something in you, maybe something you didn't even know you needed to feel. And if it touched you, it means that the light is also calling you to look within, to see what still needs to be healed, to release what no longer needs to be carried. And now, I want to make a simple but powerful request of you. Write in the comments, "I accept the light." This phrase is symbolic, but it creates movement. It shows the universe and yourself that you are ready to free yourself from what holds you back and begin a new cycle. If this message did you good, leave your like. This helps the light reach more people who, like you, need to hear something that awakens their hearts. And if you believe that nothing is by chance and that every story has a purpose, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to continue with me on this journey. With each new video, a new experience, a new revelation, a new way of understanding the other side. Now, take a deep breath and take with you what the light has shown you today. And if there is still something you want to understand, something your soul is asking to see more clearly, watch the next video that is appearing on the screen now. Maybe he is exactly the answer the light has prepared for you.